Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, beauties. Welcome to Heart, and as you can see, I'm not in a studio. I'm outside, fresh air. We've got the sun, and I'm also at Doha, Qatar, and this is the Colosseum, which is amazing. It's gorgeous. But what makes today very special is my guest, who is a very inspirational woman. She's a poet. She's a basketball player, she's an activist and also a visual artist. I've been spending a couple of days with her already. We've been hanging out, but I want you to get to know who she is. And please welcome Asma Elbadawi.
Asma Elbadawi, Wardah Global Brave Beauty. Seorang pemain dan pelatih basket internasional. Asma juga dikenal karena berhasil menghapus larangan berhijab dalam ajang olahraga profesional lewat petisi yang ia cetuskan.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
I wanted to thank you for having me on the show and for giving me the opportunity to share my story with the Indonesian audience, which I've not yet been introduced to properly.
Inshallah, you'll come to Indonesia after this.
Inshallah.
This is just the introduction. Everybody's going to get to know you, fall in love with you, as I have in the couple of days we've been spending time with each other.
Inshallah.
Asma, please, can you share with us your childhood? Because everything begins
From the childhood.
at the beginning.
So I was born in Sudan,
Yes.
in a small village. And at the age of 1 and a bit, my parents decided to move to England.
Right.
I moved to England, and the first 14 years of my life, I would say, was quite different to how everyone else around me was living, in the sense of we didn't watch TV. We were introduced to Islam at a very young age, in the sense of like learning Quran, learning about the Prophet ﷺ stories, learning about the stories of the prophets ﷺ, and peace be upon them, and just really creating a foundation that we could fall back on at any time in our life. That was my mom's goal.
Yep.
So I was doing that, and at the same time I was playing a lot. Like, I was playing a lot of sports. I was playing sports on the street, I was playing sports at school, I was playing sports, you know, when I went to my mom and dad's friends' houses. We were constantly playing sports, and in many ways those two things shaped who I am today and continue to shape who I am.
What's the core memory that you actually, like, childhood, immediately this is what I remember from my mom or from my dad, or just that core story which makes you you?
I remember being in the back of the car a lot, reading Quran really loud, and being in the back of the car and doing anasheeds, like singing along to anasheeds really, really loudly.
Is it because your mom forced you, or because she gave an example and she was doing it?
I think that was all I was exposed to. But because I was exposed to it in numerous ways, so I watched like videos that my mom would put on that were like young kids cartoons, learning about Islam. I would hear the Quran in so many different beautiful recitations, and the nasheeds were always empowering and fun. And when your kids, they're not so focused on the religion so much, it's kind of like nice things. I grew up with that kind of background.
She was never strict?
There was times where she got strict, but
Because my mom was strict.
No, the strictness, I would say, came with like, there was a balance to it, because it was like education but play,
Right.
education but play, learn but play.
But I want to touch a little bit about, there's a point where you took off your headscarf.
Yeah.
And in Indonesia, a lot of girls actually go through that phase. Can you share a little bit on that?
Sure. I decided to stop wearing my hijab, I think around the age of 18.
Okay.
I think a huge part of that was, firstly, the reason I initially wore hijab. I feel like I wore it to cover my hair.
Yeah.
And to hide the fact that it was curly, because I felt like I was being picked up on a lot and actually being bullied.
Were you?
I was being physically punched and hit in the
At
school
school?
playground. Yeah, by young boys. And I remember that went on for a year. And then after that, I decided to cover my hair because in my mind, that was the thing that was giving away the fact that I wore hijab. So I remember kind of going through that and then going to a Islamic school that I felt was really harsh in the sense of you wore the hijab and that's it. Whether there was men in the building, whether there was women only in the building, it was just you wore it and that was it. And you could be playing sports and sweating in the middle of summer, but you still have to keep your hijab on, even though there was not even a single male teacher in the entire school or head teacher or any member of staff. But there was also like a lot of, I would say, like harsh interpretations of the religion. And there was no rahmah. There was none of that, you know, I'm going to cheer for you because you love sport, but you also read Quran and you enter the Quran competitions. It was like they wanted to mold us into little good Muslims that just did their education, got married, had kids, and that was it. Like there was nothing beyond that. So I clashed a lot with them in a lot of things. I also had room for debate in my house, but there was no room for debate in school. And when you're young, you ask questions. And when you're young, you actually can be right sometimes.
Right.
And it was almost seen as, no, you're not right because you're a child. But there was instances where I felt like the teacher was actually wrong. But there was no room for debate. And there was punishment. So anytime there was a situation where I wanted to debate, it was met by a punishment.
That must have been extra, yeah?
Yeah.
You know, in Indonesia right now, a lot of kids are actually going through that bullying phase, and we have the Stop Bullying campaign. What can you say about that? Share something that will empower kids and know that actually this is an interesting thing, because my teacher, I have my mentor who says the bullying phase actually makes you stronger, because every big person, every leader actually goes through this phase because it makes you tough. What would you say? You've been through it. You're here now.
I think there's trauma in the bullying once the bullying stops, in the sense of like, I was bullied and then it stopped like this overnight.
How?
Because I told the teacher. And it literally stopped, and it was as if it never happened. And it was like sitting with myself as an 8-9-year-old, trying to understand what happened for the whole duration of a year and how it just stopped. So I think for me, it took me a long time to actually adjust and become stronger after that had happened. And it required a lot of therapy, especially when I was a lot older.
So what made you put the headscarf back on?
The thing that made me put the hijab on was literally feeling lost. I felt lost. I felt like there was something missing. And I just remembered that the hijab was part of the happiness. It was part of the happy times.
Your childhood.
Yeah. So I put it back on. And when I put it back on, I started to consciously think about it. Why have I wore it? What did Allah ask of me when He asked me to wear it? Sure. And so I was more conscious about it the second time round. But something that I did and I never stopped doing, no matter what was going on in my life, was making sure that I listened to Quran. And I felt like, to a certain extent, it kept the heart connected to Allah. And there was a moment where I was beginning to feel thirsty, like for more connection. And the only path I could see back to that connection that I had as a child was through hijab, through perfecting my salah again, through doing the things that Allah asked me to do.
MashaAllah. Goosebumps. Goosebumps. You mentioned poetry. And I think this is a very interesting part of your life as well, because FYI, Asma is dyslexic. Dyslexic. I'm not saying
It's
it.
okay.
Dyslexic.
Maybe you're dyslexic too.
Maybe I am. Dyslexic.
Yeah.
That's how you say it, right? Please explain to people who don't understand what dyslexic is and how you overcame this.
Sure. So dyslexia is a neurodiversity.
Yes, you said that earlier.
Yeah. It's something
Spectrum.
that happens in your brain that means that you basically operate in a different way to other people.
Right.
So the biggest sign of people who are dyslexic is their reading isn't as strong as their peers, and their spelling is not very great, and you will notice that their writing skills are completely different to their verbal skills.
And then you entered poetry because this is how I imagine things. If you can't write stuff down and it's hard for you, wouldn't poetry be the last on your list?
When you can't remember things, you make the thing sound interesting. You create words that take your mind on an imaginary trip and take you on a journey about feelings and emotions and almost falling into a character and allowing other people to experience that character and the setting that you're kind of trying to share with them.
And you share these stuff on your Instagram page.
Yeah.
So,
But that's not where I started.
no?
No.
You started from the radio, is it? Was
Yeah.
that where you started?
But for many years, it was a
BBC.
private thing. I kept it private because I didn't want anyone to put red markings on it. So when I started sharing, it was offline. And then I won the BBC competition. And then I started traveling. I started going to different cities, performing poetry. After the first year, I was traveling abroad. Then I had a really cool mentor. She was like, you need to talk about your basketball. I ended up being part of the basketball campaign. And then since then, like the brand has always been poet, basketball player.
This is two different. Poet, basketball player. And you did, how long have you played basketball actually?
I started playing around 18.
This is also something interesting in your basketball department where you fought for a petition for ladies to be able to wear the hijab playing basketball. Please, enlighten us.
So I was just playing sports.
Right.
And
Did they not allow you to play basketball?
they never not allowed me,
But
except one occasion. But we played anyway. But the other team played under what we call protest. So that means if we win, they can appeal the game and say that it wasn't a fair game.
right.
But it didn't make sense because normally you'll play under protest if the other team has like taller players than you or something that makes the game unfair. But the only difference between us and them was that we had girls on our team that were covered up more. And they were really offended by this. But apart from that, because I never saw Muslim girls on the TV in the Olympics, in any sporting competition, I never had those dreams of becoming professional. Like they were there, but it wasn't like, I'm going to do this. This is something that I definitely want to do. And it felt like something that I would have to fight my community. I'd have to go against a religion. I'd have to do so many things to get to that point. And I don't think I was ready for that kind of fight. So I decided that it would be something that I did for myself. But at the same time, my dad was trying to push me to do more with sports because he saw sports as something that existed when he was growing up, and especially in the Sudanese community, and it existed in a way where women were competing and winning, and they were Muslim women, you know, and that no longer existed during my time, and he wanted to revive that in some kind of way, and he wanted me to be that voice. But I just wanted to play, like I genuinely just wanted to play basketball. And it wasn't until I started to do the poetry that I started to get exposed to different people, different communities, and the media. And when I got exposed to the media and I was sharing my like story as a poet and as an artist, I got approached by different women from different parts of the world to do projects with them. So creative projects or like charity-based projects where I'll travel abroad and we'll do projects there. And when that happened, I remember a woman called Indira, who's also my friend now, called me. And I remember at the time thinking, oh my God, like, what is she going to talk to me about?
Right.
Like, I don't really know her or anything. And we were talking, and then in the middle of the conversation, I said to her, oh, I have basketball training tomorrow or later or something, I can't remember. And she was like, wait, you play basketball? And I said, yeah, do you? And she said, yeah, I used to play. I started wearing the hijab last year. I'm not allowed to play professionally anymore. And then she told me about this story about Bilqis as well in the US, and she was like, the hijab is actually not allowed in the FIBA rules. Did you know that? And I was like, had no idea. And she asked me and invited me to be part of the campaign. And it was like in that moment I just knew everything in my childhood in terms of never seeing anyone who looked like me, not seeing them on the TV, not having these women role models in my neighborhood or anything, was all due to bans. It had nothing to do with we're not good enough. It had nothing to do with the religion. It didn't have anything to do with like really our communities. It was this ban made sure none of us made it into those spaces where anyone could see us.
Right.
And we had the skills, but we were just not allowed in. And as soon as I felt like that, I just said to her, look, I'm gonna do this with you guys because I don't want the young girls to face this later in life. And I called my friends, who was also my next door neighbor, who started playing basketball because of me. And I started wearing the hijab in basketball because of her. And I said to her, look, there's this thing, you want to do it? And she said, yeah, let's go. And then before we knew it, there was 12 of us around the world. We were all campaigning.
Wow.
There was a woman from Indonesia. There was Saudi Arabia. There was Istanbul, Nigeria, USA. Like we were scattered across the whole entire world. And then we campaigned and we got people to sign. And overall, we got 132,000 signatures altogether. And then it became something that FIBA had to talk about on their agenda because our voice reached that many people and that many people supported us to make that change.
Inshallah. Okay, here's what I'm imagining. That whatever you went through with these girls fighting for the hijab must have not been easy. What are the challenges?
I think the biggest challenge was actually undoing everything that happened because the bans that were initially put in place. Because now you have generations who haven't seen Muslim women on the TV.
Right.
And you have their parents who haven't seen the same thing. And then a girl is suddenly like, I want to play. But her mom never played. She doesn't know anyone who played. Her grandmother doesn't know anyone who played. And then it's seen as a taboo, like, how do you mean you want to go and be like a man? And there wasn't any women-only spaces the same way that there is now, and especially around like this region. So it was also that extra layer of like, oh, so you're going to be coached by a man, you know? Even though, like we know, when we were coached by men, like the men don't touch you. They don't have any physical contact with you. And they actually respect our religious views and all this kind of stuff.
Amazing. I'm just glad that I got this couple of days to spend time with you, sit in the car, listen to your stories. And one thing that triggers me a lot about you is the love you have for the Quran. You know, you're doing all this stuff. You're still being your poet. You're still doing basketball as well. You're going here and there, speaking on topics which are very interesting. During our talk, you spoke about Palestine as well and Sudan. And, but, you know, I'm watching you and she's got the earphones on. What's she listening to? She's listening to the Quran. And you even encouraged me in the car. It's like, read aloud. I want to hear it. And your love for the Quran, I can feel it so much. So my question to you, what's your favorite ayah?
You know, I have
You asked me, no, I'm so sure you would
Yeah.
have so much.
I have so many.
But you need to choose one because our sun is going down.
Okay. Then I'll choose this one because it's relating to the sun and everything around us.
Inshallah.
But this one, the ayah is وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ, which basically means, so in the heavens is your sustenance and what you have been promised. And that means that basically everything that Allah has been planning for you, and your wealth, where you live, who you marry, how many kids you have, all of this has already been written by Allah and it's already been promised to you. So you just pray for it and keep praying and keep basically never forgetting that Allah is never going to leave you alone. Because He's always been there for you and He'll always be there for you.
You also mentioned dua, and I think dua is important, very much important. That's actually the power of every Muslim person. You're a poet, activist, basketball player. What is next for you? What do you think? What's your dua? What are you hoping that Allah will open up for you in the coming
My
future?
dua. I think that my dua would basically be to one day become the mom that like my mom was to me. It took me a long time to realize like how much she's done for me and my brother, and I don't think I can repay her, sorry,
Inshallah.
for like the love that she gave me for the Quran. Because when I listen to the Quran, I hear verses and I feel like Allah's talking to me. And if she never taught me Arabic and she never insisted that I listen to the Quran in all my spare time and really, you know, gave me the time to fall in love with Allah by myself, I don't think I would be the Muslim that I am today. And I don't think I would aspire to be a better Muslim. And I just want to be like half of who she is to me.
Inshallah.
And was to me and my brother.
Inshallah. Please send my regards to your mom. I don't know, but I've heard lots of stories about the mom as well. She sounds like a beautiful woman.
Sorry.
No. Okay, the makeup is going all over the place, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like it's important to have that figure, that woman figure in your life. And alhamdulillah, you have a really strong woman behind your back. Last, before we close, what's your message to the young girls out there watching, to the young girls who need that figure, to the young girls who want to learn, the young girls who want to be brave beauties, the young girls who want to step into your shoes and do the things that they can do but they won't because they don't know how yet, but they will. What's your message?
I will share a small story, and this story will explain the message. When I finished university, I remember just being so unsure of what to do next. And I made one dua. And this dua went like this. Ya Allah, you gave me an education in photography and video, but you never showed me how to use it. Ya Allah, show me how to use it. Ya Allah, you gave me the love for sport, for basketball, but you didn't show me how to use it. Ya Allah, show me how to use it. And Ya Allah, you gave me the gift of poetry, but you didn't show me how to use it. Please show me how to use it. That dua and every single dua that I've made sincerely, and not in a way that is so serious with Allah, has all come true. And He's gave me those things and more, to the point where I feel like if I said Alhamdulillah for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be able to repay Allah for those things. So I would say to the young girls out there who are trying to do things in their life, make dua. you can network with the whole entire world. But if Allah doesn't want you to achieve that thing, He won't allow you to achieve it. And you can know no one in this world that will take you to the place that you want to get to. But making dua to Him, He will open all the doors and all these people will come to you. And you don't have to get out of your seat and network or anything. So the number one thing is dua. And the dua does not have to be serious. It doesn't have to be something that you learn from one of the dua books or from the Quran. It's just a sincere conversation that you have with Allah.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that would be my thing.
Wow. You've made me cry.
You made me cry.
MashaAllah, Asma. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I think we're going to be waiting for you in Indonesia.
Inshallah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being you. I hope Allah continues to guide you. Allah continues to give you hidayah and blessings and just ease everything that's up ahead for you. And again,
for you.
Amin. Regards to your mom. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being with us on Heart to Heart. Then please catch us on the next episode. Inshallah, we're going to have another inspirational woman who will join us, who will share with us. But right now, everything that you heard today, take notes and take action. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.